Joining me now is Airwallex Director of Strategy, Amelia Hamer. Amelia, thanks for your time today. You've just released your Digital Economy Index, so just talk us through what are some trends you're seeing right now with Australians spending online?
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Ed. So what we're seeing is a number of things. Obviously, the cost of living crisis that we're hearing all over the news is being echoed in this data. As you say, Australians spending $600 less in the last 3 months than they did before, which amounts to about a 2% drop in spend online across our sample. What's really driving that is a number of things. One is e-commerce spend. So this is something we saw in the first quarter of the year. So in the January to March period, we saw a drop in e-commerce spend, and we're seeing it again. And at the start, what we thought is maybe that this is being driven by people choosing to spend instead with bricks and mortar retail. But what's becoming increasingly clear is that people are just buying less stuff in general, and they're also buying less stuff online.
Yeah, are there any major categories that jump out at you that people are cutting back on right now?
Yeah, so obviously we've got the e-commerce category, which is sort of the broadest category or the most narrow category that we look at in our data. But if we look at some of the other categories, it's really interesting because what you see is share trading. So our sample, we have a category called finance and insurance, which is primarily people putting money into shares. And what you've seen is a big pullback in that in the last 3 months or so versus the same time last year.
Yeah, and your data, it also looks like New South Wales spending has declined quite significantly compared to the other states. What do you put that down to? Is it the cost of living? Is it being felt more in New South Wales than elsewhere?
I can only speak to the data, Ed, and what the data seems to suggest is that people really are feeling the cost of living in New South Wales. What we've seen there is a very sharp decline, particularly in e-commerce spending. And New South Wales, as the most digital state, the state with the most online and tech businesses, seems to be the most impacted by this trend.
And just talk us through where the data from Airwallex has come from. What are your sort of sources of information here to come up with this info?
Sure. So here in Australia, Airwallex has over 10,000 customers. And what we do is we take the data from these businesses who are our customers and we anonymise that data and we look at where Australians are spending their money with Australian businesses and what categories of spend that we're seeing. So that's kind of where the data comes from.
And also in the index, it looks like there was some increases, though, in a couple of categories. People seem to be spending more money on online education and travel at the moment.
That's exactly right. So we're seeing a number of categories where there are some bright spots. So one is travel, and that's particularly online travel in Queensland and Tasmania, particular bright spots there. So lots of holiday makers still going up to Queensland, still going to Tasmania, and still importantly booking their holidays online. So gone are the days where people went down to the flight centre in person. Now they're very much doing that online. And the second category would be education. So particularly in states like Victoria, what we're seeing is more people and more spend in education, which is a trend we also saw in the first 3 months of the year and is now being continued. And what we kind of put that down to is the fact that, obviously the borders have reopened since last year and international students are really back. And therefore, as a consequence, we're seeing more spend in online education.
And look, last time we spoke back in January, I think it was, Airwallex was on a hiring spree. You were looking to hire a lot more people. We know it's a tough jobs market at the moment. It's tough to recruit people. How's it been going?
It's very much still the case that we're looking to hire more people here at Airwallex. So our hiring plans are continuing. We've done a good job trying to find talent, but yes, it is a tough labour market at the moment in terms of finding talent. But we're hoping to continue to find good people here in Australia.
And how are your clients just feeling at the moment, just with the way the economy around the world is tracking it right now?
I think it's definitely challenging. So again, we can kind of look at this data to understand that a bit better. And what you can see, for instance, is that e-commerce spend is down. So if you're an e-commerce business, it's going to be a challenging environment for you at the moment. But really interestingly, one thing that was also up was online advertising spend. So if you're a business who's an e-commerce business, not only is your revenue down, but also your cost, which is probably your largest cost, your cost of advertising to customers, is also going up quite substantially. So if you're one of those businesses, the environment at the moment is extremely challenging, and especially around the small and medium-sized end of the spectrum.
Well, Amelia Hamer, Director of Strategy at Airwallex, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks so much, Ed.